Hey everyone, my name is Bola. I'm the founder and CEO of Clever Girl Finance, and I'm also the author of the new book, Choosing to Prosper, Triumphing Over Adversity, Breaking Out of Comfort Zones, and Achieving Your Life and Money Dreams, which comes out this summer. Welcome to Clever Girl Finance TV and to a new episode of Real Women Talk Money. So today I'm joined by two amazing women who are part of Team Clever Girl Finance.
Hi everyone, I'm Yazmir. I'm the content creator for Clever Girl Finance.
And hi everybody, my name is Carli and I am the social media creator for Clever Girl Finance.
And we're going to be talking about how reflecting on your past can help you craft your future and why it is so incredibly important that we look back to see where we're coming from to enable us create that plan to move forward. So Yazmir, do you find yourself reflecting on your past often?
On a daily basis, yes. At nighttime, of course.
What about you, Carli?
I feel that too. I think before bed sometimes at nighttime, I definitely start to reflect a lot. So pretty much daily.
Mm-hmm. So to provide you guys with some context about why we're discussing this topic, in my book, Choosing to Prosper, I talk about various challenges that I face getting to this point in my life, including imposter syndrome, family challenges, building Clever Girl Finance, and much more. And one of the things that really helped me to be able to achieve some of my big goals was really looking back to see where I was coming from. And it's important for us to reflect back on our past because it just helps us understand what has shaped us, what makes us who we are today. And in a way, it can motivate us to determine what we want to change, what we want to keep doing, and how we want to move forward. And so we're going to go over some specific questions. We're going to talk about some specific questions to kind of help us think about where we're coming from, where we want to get to, and also help you, the audience, do the same as well. So feel free to grab a friend to do this, get a notebook, and let's get into some of these questions. One really important thing to keep in mind is that everybody's past is different. We all have different experiences, whether they're good or bad, but there are always lessons to be learned. So let's start with talking about our childhoods. And is there one specific memory or a series of memories from your childhood that have been most impactful to you?
Yes, for me, it was the constant argument between my mom and dad, and it was about money a lot of times. And it was so bad that one day my dad packed some of his things and left for a while, but then he came back. But it was a painful moment. And I remember just telling myself that, this is why I'm going to school. This is why I'm going to get a good job so that, I have the money to, leave a situation where it's just like too much arguing or domestic violence. Because like a lot of women, my mom couldn't leave that situation. And that I knew that this is something I didn't want for myself.
What about you, Carli?
Yeah, similarly to Yazmir, I think that one of the biggest moments that I remember is kind of a more difficult memory was when my father passed away. And that was when I was about 13. So that childhood memory, I think, sticks out because it kind of transformed the way that I looked at the world and losing people in my life. And it kind of even changed our family structure a little bit too. So I think that is what kind of pushed me to grow up a little faster, which then kind of translates into my life now. So that's probably the biggest moment that I can remember from being a kid, honestly.
Yeah, and my memory, I guess, what I remember the most is similar to yours, and it was more from an observation perspective, which you guys also experienced, but watching my mom just navigate her marriage, and also watching her navigate with her or interact with her friends who were coming to her because they didn't have the options to leave a bad marriage because of money, or they didn't have the options to create a plan for themselves and their children if their partner had passed away. And it was watching my mom kind of find herself in those spaces of encouraging other people and trying to navigate her own life as a young woman that those memories really stay with me, because for me it was just she was in this space where she didn't want to ever be in that situation where she didn't have the options, right? Mm-hmm. So that's those memories really stuck with me. And in a sense, they created fear in me because I was like, wow, what if my mom winds up like this women who are coming to talk to her to ask her for advice on leaving a domestic violence situation or ask her for advice about finances after the partner has passed? What if that happened to my mom, or what if that happened to me? So those memories are also tied to fear of what if this was our situation as well. So my next question for you, and we'll talk a bit more about this, because I think it's really interesting when you reflect back on those memories, just to realize like what are the things that were most impactful to you, right? So those are the memories, but now I want to talk about who in your family or just in your life has been or was most impactful to you growing up. So Carli, you can start.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the biggest impactful people was my mom. Because obviously going from the time my dad passed away and then on, she basically had to just jump in and navigate being a single parent, which was not planned. You know, it was just, she had to jump in and figure out how to do it, how to lead, and just kind of how to provide for all of our other kids in our family. And so she really did a very good job of making a really, really difficult situation just completely just covered in like triumph on her end. She did great. And I looked up to her in that, and I wish I would have looked up to her a little bit more. Like, I appreciated that, but as a kid, you don't really think about it too much. I think it took me a while to process what even happened, but my mom did a very good job. I mean, with the cards that she was dealt, she really pulled through for our family and continued to lead, and she inspired me a lot, for sure.
What about you, Yazmir?
I have to say the same thing. My mom was very, very resourceful. She was... My sister and I were her life. So she did everything that she had to do to make sure that we were okay, that we went to school. And that was a big thing for her, is for us to get an education so that we can have a life that she didn't have growing up.
And I think our moms are heroes. Moms all over the world are heroes, because the person that inspired me growing up was also my mother. Watching her, decide that she was going to go back to school because she got married at age 19 with a high school degree, had 4 kids, and then started observing these things happening with her friends. And she's like, I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet financially, so I'm going to go to school and get a college degree. And there was a lot of conflict about that because my dad felt that she was challenging his ability to take care of his family when she was just really trying to find herself and find her footing. And I got to observe that, and it really impacted me because it made me realize that fear I had, there was a counter to the fear. The fear I had of my mom losing everything, my mom not having options, or me not having options. The counter was that she could take action, which is what she was doing, and that I could take action. And so she really impacted me. Another person that was really impactful was my aunt, my mom's younger sister, who has passed away now. And they lived polar opposite lives in the sense that my parents are first in their family to go to grade school, first in their generation. My grandparents were not educated, to go to secondary school, high school, to go to college. And my mom and dad were fortunate enough to get great jobs, right, and be able to take care of their family, a good middle class family. Whereas my aunt, on the other hand, just didn't have the opportunity. And she was a teacher, and she lived in my mom's hometown. And there was a lot of poverty, but we would always be there every single summer because my mom wanted us to spend time with my aunt. And it was just watching her try to make things work, even when she didn't have a lot, really inspired me. And she was always happy, right? We would go to her house, and they lived in a small apartment that was like, I think, 2 rooms, and my aunt had 7 children. My mom would bring me, and then it would be 8 of us in this one little room.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
But that experience of watching my aunt make it work with nothing was also motivating to me, because it showed me that you don't need a lot to live a good life. You don't need a lot to be happy. So she was also incredibly impactful as well. So now that we've talked about growing up, and we've talked about the people that have impacted us the most, what opportunities do you wish were available for you or for your family members during that time of growing up, your childhood, observing this person who's impacting your life the most? What opportunities do you wish you had?
I wish my grandparents and my parents had the opportunity to get an education. I'm first generation high school and college grad, and it makes it difficult sometimes to connect. I know that there's generational differences, but I feel like if they had the opportunity to an education, I think things would be different. They would have a different view of the world, but all they had is what they grew up learning about family, about money, and that is all that they have. They can't think of anything else or imagine anything else because they didn't have that opportunity.
What about you, Carli?
I think for me, mine kind of trails more along the lines of just like access to different mental health things that people can use to be able to cope and deal with grief. I kind of wish like my family had more access to those things. We went through some family therapy, but it wasn't really talked about as much back then. And I kind of wish we knew what other options and resources we had, because those memories and experiences we had definitely stuck with us. And now as a family, we can look back on that and be like, wow, I wish we could have healed a little bit more, or maybe, you know, went through some more steps to just process as a family. So I kind of wish there was some more options of like resources for like, you know, therapy or, you know, just things like that we could use as a resource too, that we could have used at that time.
For me, I wish that there was the opportunity for there to have been more of an even field for the men and women in my family. So I talk about my mom and her sister, who were educated. They were first from their parents to go to grade school, high school, and college. But on my dad's side, it was a very different story, because my grandfather did not believe in educating the female child. He believed in the place of the female child, which was to take care of the family, have children, get married. And so my dad's twin sister is not formally educated, which means she did not go to grade school, she did not go to high school, she does not speak English. But my dad has 2 PhDs, and they are best friends today. But looking at that difference between them, I can't help but imagine what my aunt's life, my dad's twin sister's life, would be like if she had had those opportunities. And also when I say even playing field, I also come back to my mom and her side of the family, because even though they were able to get education, they were still limited by, again, what was deemed the woman's place, right? It doesn't matter how educated you are, you get married, you take care of your kids, that's your job. That's like, you have no business in the family finances, you have no business doing this and that. And so I just wish that there was more of an even playing field for men and women in that time, because, you know, we still have that struggle today, but it was much more difficult then and with the background that I come from. But, you know, I also feel like they made it work. Like my dad's twin sister is a successful trader, right? Businesswoman, despite the fact that she doesn't speak English. She didn't go to grade school or high school. My mom's sister was successful in her career teaching until she passed away. So they made it work. And I think that's part of the resilience of women. So, you know, those are the opportunities I wish my family had. So let's shift gears a little bit, because we're talking about making choices. Like, so the book is called Choosing to Prosper, and, you know, it's an active choice that we have to make. So now, knowing where we're coming from, what our childhoods were like, or we've talked about it a little bit, knowing what our family history is like, what opportunities we wish our family had, what are we doing differently today to change the narrative of our past to create a better future for ourselves? Carli, do you want to go?
Yeah, of course. So I think going back to what I mentioned, so the first thing where it starts for me was going to therapy. That is something that's very important to me. Just talking about mental health and being very upfront and like raw about how you're doing mentally is important to me. And I think that sometimes I can have a tendency to want to put up walls or act like I'm fine because I don't want to get into it. But it also has forced me into the position of acknowledging, this is how I'm feeling. I don't have to mask it. Like, I can be honest. And so I think just kind of venturing into that realm of mental health and kind of uncovering a lot of the things that I covered when I was young is what I'm doing right now. So it's a lot of like self-discovery, I think, and a lot of healing, but it's like right in your face, and it's kind of like, all right, like I have to handle this now. So as an adult now, I'm kind of just going into that realm and being honest about my mental health, and that's been a huge step for me.
And I love that you talk about mental health, because I think that's something that has a lot of like shadows around it, especially in minority communities, where you must be crazy to seek mental health help. But it's normal and it's necessary, especially if you have experienced trauma, you've lost your dad, or, you know, all kinds of trauma that people experience, and you just need an outlet, and your family or your friends are not the right people, or they can't support you. There's no shame in seeking help, you know, with mental health. And that's just something I want to put out there for anyone who's watching, who is struggling, that it's perfectly fine to seek help if you need it. So thanks for sharing that, Carli.
Yeah.
What about you, Yazmir?
Well, for me, it's over the years, it's become very, very important for me to build wealth, especially for future generations, because I've seen what the opportunities and options that money can sometimes offer, and so it's just become something that I'm working towards, like on a daily basis. Every decision that I make is based on that goal of like building generational wealth and changing that trajectory for my family and future generations.
I agree with you. That's, you know, for me, what I'm doing to change the narrative is never allowing myself to be in a position where I don't have options. Just given what I saw with my mom and her friends and even my aunts, right? The fact that I now have this opportunity where I have the privilege to be educated, to live in a country like America, to have all these opportunities. I want to make sure that I position myself where I'm never out of options, especially when it comes to finances. One of my biggest goals also is just raising my daughter to know that she can be anything and anybody she wants to be, and she's not limited to living in a man's world. And there's nothing like a woman's place. Your place is where you want to be. And also raising my son to be an ally to women and to support women, and not to look down on women, and to look at other women as also his equals, and just to be a good person. So that's how I'm focused on changing the narrative. And also, you know, when you think about women in general, women of color in general, it's just, there's a lot of it's a whole big topic, right? We are everything to everybody, but then we're also looked at less than. We carry the burdens of the whole world, and we're not supposed to have feelings. We're not supposed to show emotion, because we're supposed to be these strong women of color. But it's okay to feel emotion and still be strong. You can cry and be the strongest person, right? It's okay to pursue success and to pursue building wealth. There's no shame in wanting to do better than your family, and so and to set the stage for generational wealth and to raise your children a certain way. So for me, it's just making sure that I take advantage of all the opportunities that my aunts, my mom, the women in my family never had. So thank you so much for sharing, ladies. So your story is incredibly important. Your past is incredibly important, but also reflecting on that past and taking the lessons that you've learned and applying them to how you want your future to be, crafting the future you want for yourself, is just as important as well. I mentioned earlier that we all have different pasts, we all have different experiences, and that's fine. They may be good, they may be bad, but there are lessons that we can all learn from our past, and we can leverage those lessons to craft the futures that we want for ourselves, for our families, and for our children. So I challenge you to take some time to reflect on your past and determine the things that you learn and how you want to leverage those things to help shape your future. So be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. You can also follow us on Instagram at Clever Girl Finance, and stop by clevergirlfinance.com to check out our 30+ completely free courses. Finally, please pick up a copy of my new book, Choosing to Prosper, available everywhere books are sold, as ebook, audiobook, and physical book formats. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.